Welcome to Gemara Academy. In this class, we will learn Tosfos Dibur Maschel Umay Shna. Let's begin. Umay Shna, and what's the difference? Over here in the Gemara, we explained that one of the ways of explaining the two brises that seem to argue one another. One brisa says that if somebody extended his hand out into Rosh Hashanah while holding things, he's not allowed to bring his hand back in. Another brisa said that if somebody extended his hand out into Rosh Hashanah while carrying things, mutar lachzir, is allowed to bring it back. One of the ways of explaining these two brises is that they're actually not arguing. And the one that says asur lachzir refers to a different Rosh Hashanah. He's not allowed to bring it back from the Rosh Hashanah into a different Rosh Hashanah. And the one that says mutar lachzir is teaching that he's allowed to bring it back to the Rosh Hashanah that he's standing in. So one of the questions the Gemara presented was, Umay Shno, what's the difference if he's bringing it into a different Rosh Hashanah or if he's bringing it into his own Rosh Hashanah? And the Gemara over there explained that it's a technical detail, that if we permit the person to bring it back into a different Rosh Hashanah, ultimately that could bring in the future that he'll actually take it out to Rosh Hashanah, because he feels like what I wanted to do I accomplished. I wanted to remove it from my Rosh. Okay, so I wanted to put it into Rosh Hashanah, I didn't succeed. I put it into a different Rosh Hashanah, but he succeeded somewhat in his goal. And the next time I'll come to put it fully in Rosh Hashanah. And therefore, the Brisa says it's only mutar lachzir to his own Rosh. He can only bring it back to his own Rosh. Then we completely did not allow him to succeed at what he wanted to accomplish, which is to remove from his Rosh. So there's a clear boundary, and he won't come in the future to taking it out. So the Gemara said originally, Umay Shno, what's the difference? So Tosfos says, Bezu keneged zu ari. It's talking about that one Rosh Hashanah is across from the other Rosh Hashanah, and we're saying he's not allowed to take it when he wanted to put it to Rosh Hashanah. He can't push it over to the Rosh Hashanah that's across the street. Why do we need to say this? The bedyuta achas, because if it's on one row of porches of Rosh Hashanah that are separated by Rosh Hashanah, shna v'shna, it's extremely different. The ika isur chiyav chatas, because there's a isur chiyav chatas. The moishin Rosh Hashanah, derech Rosh Hashanah, of a person passing from one Rosh Hashanah to another Rosh Hashanah by way of Rosh Hashanah. That's actually asur min hatera. So the Brisa clearly didn't wasn't talking about a case that the individual wanted to put it to Rosh Hashanah on the same row over Rosh Hashanah, because then we never would have asked what's the difference between bringing it to your own Rosh Hashanah or putting it into another one. There's a huge difference. Bringing it to the own Rosh Hashanah doesn't have an isur min hatera. Passing from one Rosh Hashanah to another Rosh Hashanah on the same row through Rosh Hashanah is asur min hatera. Inami, or also we could say bedyut achas. They actually were next to one another. And for example, that there's no Rosh Hashanah separating. So the Brisa is saying if an individual extended his hand out into the Rosh Hashanah, the Brisa is saying asur lachzir, he's not allowed to take it and pass it over to Rosh Hashanah that's on the same row that's adjacent to his without any separation. So to summarize, the Gemara asked, what's the difference if he takes it to a different Rosh Hashanah, to his own Rosh Hashanah? So Tosfos explains we must say that it's not talking about a case where there's an isur Torah involved, because then there's an extremely big difference. One's asur min hatera, one's not, which would be a case where the two Rosh Hashanah are on the same side of the street and they're separated by Rosh Hashanah. And therefore we have to explain that it's one of the two possible cases. Either it's across the street the Rosh Hashanah he wants to pass it over to, or it's on the same side and there's no separation of Rosh Hashanah in between.